Hi Rajesh, really excited to have you here.
Sure.
So Rajesh, ये बताइए कि where did you get this idea of Make My Trip? Where did it come from? Where did it originate, and when did it originate?
Yeah, sure. No, it's a pretty interesting story, and if you look back, Prashant, I mean, it's like 23 years old. Make My Trip is actually 23 years old, adult now, as we say. Just very recently completed. It all started by a gentleman called Deep Kalra, way back in April 2000, 1st April 2000, All Fools Day, ironically. So I guess the thought that he had at that point in time, and I'll tell you sort of how we met, and then the journey continued. But idea at that point in time was that one, of course, entrepreneur. That he wanted to do something entrepreneurial. So from his point of view, to do something on his own, because we were all professionals, and even Deep was professional before that, right? And then the second then was that after that, what do you want to do? You want to be entrepreneur, but what do you want to do? What are the ideas that you have? So I think out of many ideas, there were two ideas at that point in time that were floating around. So one was, of course, online travel. The other one was actually online broking. The share broking or the trading platform, if you will, right? So, but between the two, I think it turned out to be then easier choice. And I'm speaking on behalf of Deep because it was effectively his choice. It turned out to be travel because he was passionate about travel. Right. That's how this idea started. Now, from my perspective, by the way, we didn't know each other. We met at Make My Trip. So he was looking for a founding team at that point in time. So we happened to meet, and rest is history. Yeah. Happened to meet, and we clicked in the first meeting itself. It was a very interesting meeting, pretty long meeting, in fact. At least from my point of view, it was sealed at that point in time that, he might be the guy to work with. But before that, I think the interesting part from my perspective was the thought process was always sort of brewing in my head that I also want to do something on my own, right, or I want to be part of a journey which is going to be building from scratch, if you will, right? Rather than, pursuing your career like a, large corporate executive or whatever, right? And so the conventional path of, career.
Creating a large corporate.
Creating or building something from scratch like your own baby. Right. And then, hopefully impacting lives, right? Eventually. So that was really the idea. And the dry run actually started a little bit before, because just before Make My Trip, I was with another startup. And today that is a very hot space. It was EdTech startup, where we were trying to do Master of Computer Science degree from University of Illinois, video streaming. Right. And those days, video streaming was not necessarily because bandwidth never used to be there. तो हम FTP पे डालते थे server पे, and then from there we used to do a classroom sessions with the IT professors and stuff like that. But we couldn't scale that. But it was a good sort of dry run to get the flavor of what startup could mean. Right. And that startup happened after like my stint with Aptech, which was beautiful, like 5 years stint with Aptech. So I guess the idea was on my mind, somewhere in my head brewing. And then when I met up with Deep, I loved the idea, right, and loved the man. And then that is how we got together.
Right,
yes.
So you think as a chartered accountant, being a finance professional, shifting to business and actually being an entrepreneur, is that?
No, I think it's a great question. So, you know what, again, and something, it's very interesting because CA, as you know, or for that matter, to be honest, any sort of, basic qualification, or let's say any post-grad qualification as a fundamental base, sets a foundation very nicely. It obviously gives you functional expertise, whatever specialization that you would have chosen, right, but it sets up a nice foundation for you. After that, you have to discover yourself, right? From a career growth standpoint, what are you discovering? Because if you ask me today, I know nothing about what I did in CA in the past, right? You forget about it, right? Because the life changes completely. And I think from my point of view, the shift from a finance role to a business role happened very, very fast. In fact, my first job in Voltas, I remember, I used to do my, whatever little role that I was given as a fresh chartered accountant, maybe in 2-3 hours in a day. Right. And then I will be on the shop floor trying to understand how the switchgears were produced, right, or manufactured. So I think somewhere down the line, it was thing was that one has to understand more business. When I left Aptech, I was doing a business role. I was heading North, division of Aptech. So it sort of came to me naturally.
Right.
And then from there on, like I said, right. So I was thinking of, okay, now if you have to pursue your career, look for doing something on your own and make Matrep happen.
You know, आप कह रहे हो कि people have to be qualified, they have to do a post-graduation degree to be an entrepreneur?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
Not at all. I mean, there are many examples of college
Yeah,
dropouts, school dropouts,
they are
etc.
doing very well, right?
Absolutely, they're doing
Yeah.
exceedingly well. So, no, I think the point I was trying to make was that good old days, the conventional wisdom used to be complete your studies,
Right.
get
And
into
then-
the professional. Things have changed.
Right.
These days, even the dropouts would get into it, and people who are getting into becoming entrepreneurs are very, very young.
Yeah.
Those days, we were all working professionals.
Absolutely.
Like we had like 7-8 years of experience. Deepa had 8 years experience. I had, even the other two co-founders, Sachin and Kayur, had experience.
Right.
So those days have changed. I think at that point in time, conventional wisdom used to be, and maybe it stemmed from the fact that, build some sort of financial security for yourself, or also the learning.
Right.
And maybe, that was the advantage at that point in time, as people say that, maybe we were relatively little bit more matured.
Right.
Or experienced than maybe the young entrepreneurs. So the journey becomes a little bit sort of shorter in terms of learning curve.
Yeah. So today's entrepreneur, Rajesh, I mean, how would you say, what would be some of the learnings that you would like to give to them? And just based on what you have seen over
Absolutely.
the last 20 years, 23 years of
and
running this company.
Absolutely. And a ton of learning, Prashant,
Right.
to be honest. I mean, and the learning curve still continues because, every
Absolutely.
stage that you're learning, because it's such a dynamic space.
Absolutely.
Fast changing every time. I mean, every now and then there's new technology that is sort of disrupting your life, right? So you got to be on your toes and learning and stuff like that. But if you have to look at just learnings over the last, let's say, 23 odd years, and you have to say, okay, what could be the
Top two,
potential
three,
2-3
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
nuggets for the young entrepreneurs who want to be
Yeah,
entrepreneurs,
right.
perhaps. I think the first one, if you ask me, is that it's a hard choice that you have to make, because it's not a fashion statement to make that, my 3 friends have started a startup and therefore I also need to do a startup.
Right.
I think that's a blunder that anyone would make. You don't have to just, join the race just for the sake of it.
Right.
So you have to do a lot of thinking, lot of, weighing pros and cons of various choices that you would have as part of your career focus, right?
Right.
There are plenty of options. I mean, in today's world, there are like thousands of options available, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you can pick and choose.
Barring COVID, when was it where you really felt, I don't think I should do this anymore?
Actually, to be honest, that moment never came, and maybe we were lucky.
Right.
It pushed us to the wall, and that actually pushing to the wall happened first 5 years. When it was really early stage, when we were all under the pressure because there was opportunity cost, etc. And then one would think at that point in time, are we doing the right kind of thing or not? In fact, Deep will tell you this story that, there was an offer to him to sell the company at, nothing.
Right.
So, and thank God we didn't take that offer, or he didn't take that offer, right? That was the time, and early stage of startup is perhaps the toughest.
Right.
It is also a lot of fun, lot of action, lot of work, lot of hard work, but it's also the toughest. As you start your journey to grow, then there will be plenty of challenges. There is no dearth of challenges. In fact, there is a famous saying at MakeMyTrip, there is never a dull moment.
Right.
Like you start talking about and saying, यार पिछले 7 दिन ठीक चले तो कुछ 8वें दिन कुछ ना कुछ हो जाता है. And most of the time something will happen more from a macro perspective, not necessarily within the company. Thankfully, within the company we've not seen so many crises, but macro driven, there are plenty of them. Like,
so just when COVID happened, and there was no travel.
Yes.
And I think there was so much of uncertainty. Nobody knew what's going to happen. What was running in your minds?
No, so
आपको लगा कभी कि सब खत्म हो गया?
So
you can.
No, I'll tell you very honestly. No, it was extremely tough because this kind of a crisis we had never seen before.
Right.
हमने बहुत सारे देखे थे, by the way. हमने SARS pandemic देखा था, हमने .com burst देखा था, हमने 9/11 देखा था, airlines going down देखा था. There were many that we had seen, but this was a mega crisis. There was no question for 2-3 reasons. One, the size of our company was very big.
Right.
Two, the biggest responsibility on our shoulder, if there was something that we were thinking really, really hard, was 3,000 people.
Right.
Right? Early stage startup में 15-20 लोग होते हैं,
हाँ.
so then you can easily manage, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not really a big deal. 3,000 people, revenue dropping by 95%, couldn't have been bigger.
Couldn't have been, yeah.
Couldn't have been
absolutely.
bigger crisis,
Right.
right? The saving grace for us, and I think that is learning from the past. The point that I was
Yeah.
making, that if you have gone through a crisis, what is the biggest learning? So biggest learning historically in this sector for us used to be build some war chest.
Hmm.
Always make sure that you should have some cash on your balance sheet because something or the other will happen. You should never go out of pocket.
Hmm.
And that is a principle when I was doing my CFO role, we had followed then also.
Right.
That we will not necessarily link tightly, or rather tightly couple the fundraising event with, you know, how much sort of cash that you
Yeah,
left
yeah,
in the
yeah,
bank,
yeah.
etc. Right? I mean, as much as possible, because sometimes early stage you cannot be, you know, you may not have that choice, right? Or
Right,
may not
right.
have that luxury.
Right.
But when we had the luxury, we started doing that.
Hmm.
And we had money. So therefore, this was not an existential crisis for
Right,
us,
right.
thankfully.
Yeah.
It wasn't existential, but it was like otherwise massive because we were a listed company, you know, stakeholders getting worried, overall industry coming to standstill and so on. So therefore, there, the learning was that we needed to act and act like all hands on the deck.
Right.
Literally, and you know, taking team along and all that. One of the learnings also over the years, Prashant, is that, and we've seen, if you set the culture right in an organization, you know, which is more friendly, accessible, transparent, empowering, wealth creation
Creation.
and sharing,
Right.
then during crisis, people come together.
Yeah.
It's like India, we all say, right? You know, हिंदुस्तान में क्राइसिस होता है या वर्ल्ड कप होता है तो सारे
हाँ,
एक ही तरफ
एक
हो
ही
जाते हैं,
तरफ,
right? Because then it's just one
Everybody-
goal that you're
yeah,
chasing.
yeah.
You know, it always happens. And during COVID also, like everybody was helping everybody, right? It's not that, you know,
That's right. Everybody was having
everybody,
it.
right? Crisis may we all come together.
Yeah.
But that they all come together in an organization, if the organization has also helped people in the past and created that sort of an environment. And I
Absolutely.
think we were lucky to have that.
Hmm.
We were lucky to have our leadership team also coming together, our next level coming together. If we were setting the example from the top and saying we will go on zero salary, others also sort of
Others also
contributed
joined
and
in.
said voluntarily.
Yeah.
So there was actually a huge amount of conviction.
Right.
Trust me, if there was anything that was between, let's say, of the top leadership team was playing on our mind at that point in time, rebuilding the business, because business was down to almost zero.
Zero. Yeah.
So rebuilding, and we didn't know whether it's going to take 1 year or 2 years or more.
Hmm.
And it ended up taking 2 years. And the reality
Yeah, but
is,
after that, it's just skyrocketed, right?
it skyrocketed.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the reality is that it did actually take 3 years. 2 years pandemic recovery. Third year was business recovery.
पर अब सब कह रहे हैं कि आप जितना आपने छोड़ा था उससे मल्टीपल में रिकवर कर लिया है
उसका एक
और
reason है।
लोगों से खर्चे ज्यादा करा रहे हो
नहीं, खर्चे नहीं ज्यादा करा रहे, उसके खर्चे ज्यादा कराने का तो रीजन मैं बाद में बताता हूँ, बट जो रिकवर किया या वी सॉर्ट ऑफ इमर्ज स्ट्रॉन्गर एंड बेटर, उसका एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रीजन है, वो इंपॉर्टेंट लर्निंग है फॉर एवरीवन
हाँ
इंक्लूडिंग अस, that down cycle not only presents challenges, it actually presents opportunities.
that's right yeah
How are you going to seize those opportunities are up to you. So we had manpower, BAU was not happening. We deployed, we started thinking of what are the new projects that we should invest on.
right
I'm telling you, there is the amount of resources that we deployed to build the new platforms, new customer touch points. In the shortest span of 2 years, the amount of development that happened had never happened in the history of MakeMyTrip. You know what people don't realize, that, you know, now everybody's saying it's booming, etc. The reality is the industry lost 3 years.
yeah I know so it's
It's
recovering
like you
it's,
have to, it's recovering.
it's
right?
recovering,
I mean, you know,
yeah.
I would have actually been at this position 2021.
no it
if-
is recovering but
it
it's
is-
hurting the pockets of people like us but it's recovering
Okay, let's
For
talk about
sure, for
hurting
sure.
the people for people's pocket. No, see, firstly, you know, people should be generous because 2 साल बेचारों ने कुछ
नहीं
नहीं
किया।
कमाया।
हाँ।
नहीं, इन्होंने लोगों ने खर्चा नहीं किया, और ये सारी कंपनी से पूरी इंडस्ट्री struggled hell of a lot.
Right.
You know, a lot of people ended up losing their jobs as well, and they were making huge losses.
Yeah.
तो थोड़ी देर बनाने दो उनको भी पैसे. But also more importantly, I think it's a cumulative impact
Yeah.
of demand coming back and behavior changing to spend more,
More, yeah.
experience more. I think.
No, I think it's also people realizing after the pandemic that you never know
Life
what's
is
going to
short.
happen again, right?
Life is short,
and
right?
make the most out of
Absolutely.
it.
And make the
And
most
travel and hospitality is
That's
the-
helpful.
Yeah.
That is
Now,
what is
now, and Rajesh, just your expansion, right? Geographical expansion,
Yeah.
vertical expansion. I mean, where do you see that happening now? Will we see Make My Trip as the world's largest online platform, Expedia and all? सबको आप
Why not? Why
हाँ,
not?
हम लोग को देश में एक ऐसा we need something like that.
Why
right?
not?
So
We should be-
is that
No, we
in
should
the
be
horizon?
ambitious about that. I
Yeah.
mean, so I'll tell you what is in horizon, which is like immediate horizon. We've been the Indian leading OTA player, right? And India has been our core market, and there's still a lot of juice left in the India market, and India is also growing rapidly.
So how much percentage of the travel business is still outside of the OTA?
Outside of the India,
In India, how much? What's your?
Small.
I'm just saying as an opportunity
not even
size.
single digit.
So
Small
everything,
single digit. Right now, everything is 95% is all India.
right?
And there is so much headroom still left in India, and therefore the platform that I was talking about is actually getting into corporate, getting into B2B2C space, building a trip money platform, etc. is all India focused.
Right.
So to take the next level of growth of in India, and India is also overall growing. It's
Absolutely.
projected to grow. Travel industry is projected to now grow at about 13-14% year on year, and online will grow double the rate.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot of juice left. But we also have already made a couple of international sort of geo expansion moves as well. And one of them is setting up Make My Trip in the GCC markets to
Right.
start with UAE.
Right.
And ironically, that also got launched in the middle of pandemic. Developed and launched everything all told end to end in the middle of pandemic. When everybody was saying, in fact, I started getting those questions and saying, yaar, kya ho gaya? We are trying to survive it. तुम नई market में launch कर रहे हो because this is not the right time to launch.
Right.
And I said, maybe from our perspective, where I am coming from is that maybe it will give us an opportunity to test the market as the market is recovering. And that part of the world was recovering faster.
Yeah, absolutely.
It so happened that it started to recover faster than the rest of the world. So that's our first foray of the OTA brand taking to the region first.
Yeah.
Before we can think
Yeah,
about any
global.
other markets globally, because there are like
But when you're
big
doing
players.
a digital delivery and it's all digital, right? Everything is digital.
Right.
The only thing required is broadband penetration, Wi-Fi, internet
That's
availability in those geographies. What stops you from going global?
No, I'll tell you, it's not. I wish it was that simple. So building platform is not necessarily difficult. Acquiring customers from
yeah.
that geography is
Yeah.
difficult
Yeah.
and very expensive. If you have to digitally acquire customers from Europe, for example, and if you have an incumbent like Booking.com sitting in Europe,
Yeah.
it's not going to be easy. It's not.
But it's not going to be like they're not capturing the entire market. It's not a monopoly for them.
No,
right?
not at all.
Yeah.
It's just a question of prioritization,
prioritization,
right?
right,
It's just a
yeah.
question. Therefore, we, by same logic, we've gone into the GCC market, and I'll tell you another example that we've done, end to end. In fact, building on your sort of logic itself, right? Redbus brand of ours.
Yeah.
We've taken it to 5-6 markets already, including Latin America.
Right.
We are in Southeast Asia. We are in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia. We are trying to look at Vietnam, and we are already there in Peru and Colombia.
Right.
So we have taken exactly the same playbook with the same logic and organically growing it. But it's just a question of prioritization, right? Our plate is right now full for, next level of growth coming from India, as well as, let's say, Middle East region.
Right.
And then from Redbus perspective, maybe from the global.
Tell me, Rajesh, the entire SMB segment in India, or small medium businesses segment, which are travel agents, and
Absolutely.
I think every corner still in tier 1 will have one, in tier 2 will have many more, and tier 3 will have many more.
Yeah.
So isn't with your platform coming in, is there a collaboration that you're trying to do with them?
Yeah.
Or are they going to lose their living because?
No, not at all. In fact, India is a large country, right? And there will always be small travel agents, small shops. It's true for product commerce categories as well. And therefore, one of the reasons why a lot of the product commerce companies, product e-commerce companies are also thinking of hybrid models. Model is because of some of these sort of nuanced, market dynamics, if you will, right? So what we are trying to do is to divide this B2B market into two. One is the real corporate market.
Right.
So small and medium enterprises market.
Absolutely.
And we've built, and I was talking about various platforms. One of the platforms is actually MyBiz, focusing on small and medium enterprises. So that is like a clear direct B2B business.
Yes.
You're providing solution for corporate travel,
Right.
right? And then on the other hand, we've built a platform called My Partner,
Okay. For all the
which is travel agents.
Right.
So now all the content that we have built
It's available to them.
is available to them, is exposed to them.
Right.
If without we getting into their
So
sort
they
of
become really your
territory,
partners.
they become partners,
Yeah.
and I'm not taking, the customer belongs to them, continues to belong to them, so that they don't feel insecure.
Right. Right.
Because see, otherwise what will happen is that
Yeah,
the
they will,
general
yeah.
perception is that, eventually that customer will move, and, you might solicit that customer subsequently, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. So we've set those rules and guidance right at the beginning itself.
Right. And Rajesh, I mean, the way earlier we used to carry tickets, now everything is online. Obviously, you guys have played a very important role in that, and
Yeah.
the government of India has played an extremely important role in that. And the entire aviation sector and the hospitality sector has
Totally.
played. So what next? What is the next innovation for this entire ESG? I'm sure this has resulted into a lot of paper being saved, a lot of time being saved. I don't know, fuel as of now may not,
Yeah.
but at some point in time that can
Yeah.
also happen.
Yeah.
So what are you guys?
Yeah.
What are you doing? And are you putting a carbon footprint on every ticket
Yeah.
that you, so that people think before they book?
I know. No, this is a great question, by the way, because if there is one of the areas which I think globally we are not investing as much we should be, it is actually sustainability.
Right.
It is about the environment, and we know what's happening to the climate change environment and so on. So we, from our point of view, definitely are doing some humble beginnings.
Right.
For example, that, as part of our initiative, we have a Make My Trip Foundation focusing only on travel related but green initiatives. Like plantation of trees is one of the initiatives. So I don't know if you would have noticed on our platform, we have a small little thing, 5 rupees, 10 rupees, sometimes 15, 20 rupees, depending upon the product. For that customer has the option to sort of contribute towards this cause. And then from our own corporate side on, Make My Trip as an entity also contributes from time to time the amount into the foundation for doing some of these initiatives.
Right.
So it's on sustainability. And not only, let's say, plantation of trees is definitely one, and we have like over 1 million plantation has already happened. In fact, maybe 1.5 million now. But also picking up some of the destinations, leisure destinations for cleanliness drives, the waste management, and so on and so forth.
So Rajesh, what is next in terms of innovation?
Yeah.
Hamari life is all known to you, where we travel, what we do while traveling. So what is
I know.
next?
Yeah, life known to us is actually data.
Yeah.
And then data we are only, and trust you me, we are only leveraging for not doing anything else, but to give you better experience. So
Right.
give you better personalized experience. So in fact, what you just mentioned is the next innovation that is emerging very, very fast now. That how can I give you an experience which is very, very personalized, not necessarily a standard platform that is visible to everyone.
Right.
Right? So the early days of innovation was that I have a listing, I have a
personalized.
choice. It's a very personalized based on your past choices.
Right.
Right? So if you are looking for only a 5-star hotel, then why do I need to show like a list of 30,000 hotels? Right? So I will show you a few, and then this is a very simple, crude example of that, but then you can take it to the next level.
Right.
So that is one definitely happening. It's actually already live in the works and all. But I think the other very interesting and showing a lot of promise, I know there is a lot of hype around it, and I'm cutting the noise and the hype out of it. But it is showing promise as we are working on the use cases using that technology is going to be generative AI. So, and we have a soft launch already, working on Microsoft as a partner. And it's going to be a journey. It's because India is the vernacular language, and the accent and the dialects are not easy.
That's right.
Right? It's the conversational Hindi is very different. Right? So we're working on that, but I see promise there. From a long-term standpoint, I see promise there. Yeah.
Anything that you can tell us how our life would change just 1 or 2 ways in which it's going to change in the next 3 months in the travel domain?
How your life is going to change. I can tell you how your experience might be changing. So see, one of the trends that are emerging, and it's worth sort of experimenting. It's worth using, as part of your stay experience, is to move away from, let's say, not necessarily all the travel that you would do end up staying at the hotel. come and stay on a villa, come and stay on a homestay, have that kind of, if you are traveling.
Are you selling the World Cup?
Are
you selling the World Cup villa story which was
no,
which you advertised?
It was there on TV today morning, incidentally. No, I'm not selling. I'm not selling it. I'm not actually. I was downplaying it to the right audience. I was actually downplaying because everyone is talking about World Cup, but India के matches कितने हैं? And इतने 6 दिन का travel बढ़ेगा तो that doesn't move the needle for the whole quarter, right? So, but it does. It helps the momentum.
Yeah,
it does help the momentum. Because it's a very positive thing. The sports always sort of push the tourism for sure.
Right.
But more importantly, what I was trying to say, let's say offbeat locations. India is today leading the travel recovery.
Right.
And we are lucky to have India as a large country and many, many places to visit. And there are many hidden gems that we have not even tried. I am actually very encouraged by the infrastructure push that the government is also doing, by the way. So more connectivity that you solve, more airports that you solve, more highways that you build, you will be in position to experiment offbeat locations.
Yeah.
And in offbeat location, you will not find hotels.
Yeah, you'll find all these.
You will find homestays. You will find very decent, very luxury villas also.
Right.
Right? You will find them because a lot of people are investing in second homes and they are now saying, okay, this could be an alternative source of earnings for them. So that's definitely one where I think potentially experience can change for the better.
Yeah.
It'll definitely give you a flavor of the new destinations, etc. That'll happen. The other thing, which is very interesting, Dev, for yesterday only there was an announcement. I think that's the next level of digitization in this space that is going to happen. The problem statement is that while national level, regional level digitization is happening on many use cases, destination experience still needs a lot of improvement.
Right. So Rajesh, let's maybe go to your advice now to the people who are listening in, right? What is your favorite destination to go?
So Maldives is my favorite, and with family.
With family,
absolutely.
And what about party destination? Hottest party destination, boys trip.
Your hottest party destination has to be Vegas, by the way.
Vegas we can't afford. Tell us something.
So Miami.
Miami.
Then go to Thailand.
Then go to Thailand.
So if you can't afford Miami, but these are the 3 hottest destinations for party.
Right. And what airline do you prefer to fly with?
What airline do I prefer to fly with internationally?
Internationally.
I've flown in domestic. I used to actually travel a lot in Indigo, off late Vistara.
Right.
Vistara has a beautiful product now.
Business class, economy?
Long haul, it has to be business class.
Domestic
is premium economy.
Premium economy. What do you prefer? You prefer
only because of my legs.
So what do you
long
prefer?
Legs.
What do you prefer? Aisle, window, or middle?
Always aisle.
Always aisle.
Look at my height.
What do you do in your free time?
What do I do in free time?
If you have free time.
No, I'll try to carve something out. I actually like to play sports and spend time with family.
Cricket?
To be honest.
Is your favorite sport? Or?
No, cricket used to be. I still play once in a while.
Right.
I had the opportunity to play at Lords also. But I play baddie regularly these days.
Right. Do you Google search yourself?
Do I Google search myself? No, my son does.
You don't?
I don't.
Okay.
And that's a joke in our family.
What are the 3 things you would advise people to carry while they are traveling? Traveling.
Chargers?
Chargers and chargers.
Chargers
and chargers.
No. What I like to carry, I'll tell you. And I don't know whether people would like to carry that
give
or not.
advice to the people who you advise travel on, right? You're a travel platform.
Yeah, I'll tell you that the travel platform.
Rajesh is 3 top advice.
I'll tell you. So, given that we are from the digital world, I would say, and we want to work on sustainability, don't carry a hard copy of the boarding card. Don't need it. Don't carry hard copy of the e-ticket. You don't need it. Everything is digital. You can put it on Digi Yatra. You can put it on, Digi Locker. Everything is digital these days. You don't really. Most of the airports, wherever there is needed, of course there will be instructions you'll have to carry, right? Specifically visas, but otherwise you don't really need to carry. And travel light as far as possible.
Yeah, don't have any check-in luggage.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say don't have any check-in luggage if you're going for a 10 days holiday.
Right.
I mean, then you won't be able to enjoy your holiday. You'll have to do shopping somewhere there, right? That'll be somebody else's economy. I would rather have them do shopping here,
right,
which is India's economy, than that. But otherwise, work travel, I think we should travel light. I mean, I love to because there will be less traffic, less congestion everywhere and all of that. Like, we are very happy if we are able to carry the cabin bag and just
Just
walk
breeze
through
through.
Digi Yatra and breeze through,
Yeah.
right? So
I think Digi Yatra is fabulous.
yeah.
3 things that you would not want people to do while they travel.
Don't forget their passport because it happened with me.
Yeah. You forgot your passport.
And return,
Okay.
absolutely.
So do you
because-
have when somebody's traveling international and book the ticket through Make My Trip, do you have a
There are
prompt
tips.
which goes 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours before the flight, carry your passport?
We-
Don't forget your passport.
No, we don't, but that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That we should think about it. But that's a good idea on the return. But it has happened to many people. In fact, to me and the both had happened. I was terrible experience because we all have the habit of putting, passports in the locker, right?
And then you
and
forget
that's
in
the
the
last
hotel.
thing. I liked what I was flying to Dubai Emirates, and Emirates has that
Chauffeur.
the chauffeur driven car, and they will come and all that. So while coming from Dubai, the guy asked me,
Do you have your passport?
do you have your passport? Or the hotel counter also asked me, do you have your passport? Because they know every time that people forget about it.
Yeah.
So obviously they picked it up, and it's a smart thing to do. But I think that is the worst nightmare that you could possibly have.
Forget your
If
passport.
you forget your passport and then you have to run back to the hotel to fetch your
Yeah.
passport, catch the
Second
flight,
one,
etc.
second one, Rajesh.
That they should not do.
Second, and you have a third one as well.
Like, it's hard to think what is that you should not do. Maybe don't pick up too tight short connections,
Right.
right? Because invariably there could be challenge, right? Because if you're going long haul and you're taking a connecting flight,
You could actually-
again, I'm telling you from my experience.
Absolutely. No, your experience. Your
my
advice
experience
to,
only.
Yeah.
My experience because
I mean,
I
and
was
when we
at
talk about domestic more than international.
yeah. No, domestic is easy travel, right? Domestic, just take it easy, take it more like a, commute from one place to another place, right? Or, and these days what has happened in the low cost carriers is either you pre-book meal or you won't get meal in the flight, right? So
Absolutely.
maybe pre-book meal would be the advice that I would give, because the way the service happens in the airline is very different these days.
That's right.
Except if it is part
Full-
of
it's a
the
full-
ticket,
full-
if it is like Vistara or Air India, right?
Yeah.
So that would be the second
Yeah.
piece of advice.
Great. Great, Rajesh. Any final words for the young budding entrepreneurs? I don't know. I'm sure you've invested in a lot of startups. I'm sure personally.
Yeah, well, I've not a lot of startups, but I've invested in few.
Yeah. But any advice? Any final words of advice for the budding entrepreneurs? I know we covered a few things that they should focus on, but any
See, I think it is important for an entrepreneur, and especially when you're starting young and all. Keep listening to, because you would not necessarily know it all, right? I mean, we didn't know it all, even if we had 7-8 years of experience.
right.
So you got to be in learning mode. You got to be open to listening people.
Yeah.
You find, and that is your choice. You have to find who you think that you can actually walk up to and have a very frank conversation, because the life is going to be pretty lonely otherwise.
Absolutely.
See, unless you have the team around you and you're open to sort of brainstorm and do it, because you won't know it all. Like, nobody can claim to know it all, right? There's always a collective wisdom that sort of helps at the end. And so, open to listening, open to learning, and don't feel, I mean, there's no ego involved in anything, right? That, do I need to, and how the other person is going to sort of perceive or whatever. That's all. I think you can just cut that out.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
just be open and
Continuous learning is good.
continuous learning, and listening skills are
Listening.
important. So if you're open to, then you would be listening to the advice, and hopefully maybe not all the advice that you would follow, but there will be some nuggets that you will get that will help
Absolutely. And sorry, one final one. That on the employee side and with the large organization that you have, we talked about the 120 top employees. How do you keep the entire workforce motivated? How many times do you connect with, let's say, people as a?
No, I think it's a great question. I think it's quite a bit actually, and and of course, our head of HR and the HR team does a fabulous job of connect. I mean, if you would now walk on the floor, you will see one activity or the other going, just from a connect standpoint. But I think from our point of view, there are 2 or 3 big forums that we have. So one, we've got an annual town hall, which
Right.
is like a company-wide town hall
With
now,
thousands of people.
with thousands of people. One in Delhi, one in Bangalore.
Right.
And we try to do it. In the middle of pandemic, we actually did virtually, by the way.
Right. And you do this
Like
physically.
we do it in person, like big a place booked and all. And that is actually 2 or 3 things. One, of course, that it's a platform for you to be able to disseminate, what's happening. So the wider audience, they know what's happening in the company, maybe go forward strategy, market trends, etc. But more importantly, a lot of entertainment, a lot of performances from people, so a lot of inclusion there.
Right.
And then you will get a facilitator, get a sort of also speaker from outside who could also be relevant. So some bit of gyan for people as well. And last but not the least, the most important one for that platform is recognition.
Right.
And people look forward to,
absolutely.
and they get rewards, and they really look forward to standing on that podium.
Yeah.
And then getting recognized. So that's one big thing that we do. Then every quarter, we actually have a wider population, about 350 odd people. After the earnings release, there's a Q&A session.
Right.
What happened in a quarter, and what questions do you have? Ask me anything, kind of a thing.
Right.
And then the other thing is that we have been following very religiously now from an Employee Connect standpoint is immersion with the hiring team, the new hires. So the new hires that every leader of the leadership team or the next level, depending upon the availability, would go and do this session and give them full knowledge of their part of the function that they would be, or the responsibility that they would be handling, just to give them a full picture of organization, culture, everybody, functional, business, and so on. And last but not the least, every time that we have a HR business partner concept as part of HR team, every business unit has a partner attached to it.
Right.
Which is like an end-to-end, effectively the head of HR for that business unit, taking care of end-to-end everything and all of that, right? So from time to time that they would organize, let's say, one of the things that we used to face was that youngsters, they might get lost in the system. So you have to not only handle them, so we have a buddy system, but also the interaction with the top, after 6 months, after 1 year also helps. So what happens to the young Turks? How do they feel after 1 year? So that they sort of look at next 2-3 years or more, 4 years, 5 years more as a long-term career option rather than just
a 6 months.
Just a 6 months and a 1 thing. So these are few things that we end up.
Phenomenal. I think I can hear a lot of buzz. So thank you very much, Rajesh.
Thank you
for being with us. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.